I never thought I'd reach a point in life where I'd have to test my own family. But sometimes the truth hides behind the people we trust the most. For years, I worked day and night to build everything I have, a company from scratch, a life of comfort, and a name people respected. I wasn't born rich. Every bit of my success came from sleepless nights, sacrifices, and a hunger to prove myself. When I finally made it, my family suddenly became closer than ever. They were proud, loving, and always around. Or so I thought. At first, it felt good. Family dinners, celebrations, endless calls asking how I was doing. But deep down, I started noticing something strange. Their love seemed to shine only when my wallet was full. When I didn't spend, they didn't smile. When I refused to buy them things, their tone changed. One night, as I sat alone in my huge apartment, a thought crept into my mind, quiet but sharp. Would they still care if I had nothing? That question didn't let me sleep. It stayed with me for days, whispering louder every time I looked at my phone and saw another message asking for money. So I decided to find out. I would disappear from the world of wealth. I'd become the person they once ignored, the broke version of me. No one would know it was a test, not even my parents. I wanted to believe their love was real. But deep down, a cold feeling told me I was about to be disappointed. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my own reflection. Was I really about to do this? It sounded crazy, pretending to be broke just to test my own family. But the more I thought about it, the more I needed to know the truth. I couldn't live wondering if their love was just another business deal. I made my plan carefully. First, I called my lawyer and moved all my money into a private account under a different name. Then I sold my luxury car, the one everyone in the family loved to borrow. I told my assistant to tell anyone who asked that my company had suffered a major loss. Within a week, the news had spread like wildfire. My phone started buzzing nonstop. My mother called, her voice trembling. "What happened, sweetheart? Are you okay?" I smiled sadly. "I'm fine, Mom. I just lost everything." She gasped, and for a moment, I thought she truly cared. But then she said quietly, "Oh, dear, how will we manage the house expenses now?" That line hit harder than any punch. I moved into a small old apartment on the edge of town, one no one would recognize. I wore simple clothes, cooked instant noodles, and used public transport for the first time in years. When I visited my parents again, their faces fell. My golden brother, Adrian, smirked. "Wow, guess success doesn't last forever, huh?" I laughed softly, pretending it didn't hurt. Inside, my heart cracked a little more. They said they'd support me, but days turned into weeks, and I didn't hear from them again. No calls, no visits, no concern. The test had just begun, and something deep inside me whispered they were already failing. At first, I tried to believe things were still the same. I told myself maybe they just needed time to adjust, maybe they were busy. But deep down, I could already feel the difference. Before, my phone never stopped ringing. My parents called every evening. My siblings texted me jokes and updates, and my relatives visited almost every weekend. But now my phone was silent. The only messages I got were from the bank or my one loyal friend, Ethan, the only person who knew the truth. When I called home, my mother sounded distant. "Oh, we were just heading out, dear. Can I call you later?" She never did. My brother, Adrian, the golden child, seemed to enjoy every second of my downfall. He made small jokes whenever we met. "You know, you should have saved better. Not everyone's meant for success." He said it with a smile, but his eyes sparkled with pride. Family dinners changed, too. I wasn't invited anymore. One evening, I drove by my parents' house just to check on them. Through the window, I saw them laughing, eating together, with Adrian and his wife. My chair, the one I always sat in, was gone. I stood outside in the dark, feeling like a stranger to my own blood. A week later, I asked my sister for a small favor, to borrow her old laptop for a few days. She sighed loudly and said, "I'm not sure, it's kind of inconvenient right now." That word, inconvenient, echoed in my mind. It was strange how love could vanish the moment money disappeared. I began to see the truth more clearly every day. The polite smiles, the fake concern, the quick goodbyes. They weren't just drifting away. They were erasing me. Still, I kept quiet. The test wasn't over yet. But a quiet fear started to grow inside me. What if the truth I was searching for was worse than I imagined? Days turned into weeks, and weeks slowly turned into months. The silence from my family grew heavier, like a storm cloud that refused to pass. I told myself I could handle it. That was all part of the plan, but loneliness has a way of breaking even the strongest hearts. One evening, I sat in my small, dim apartment staring at an empty plate. I hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. My business was running smoothly under Ethan's name, but no one knew that. To the world, and to my family, I was broke, forgotten, and alone. I decided to call my mother. My voice trembled slightly as I said, "Mom, I'm struggling a bit. Could I borrow a small amount just to get by this month?" There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "Sweetheart, your father and I have our own bills. Maybe you should ask Adrian. He's doing well these days." Adrian, of course. I called him next. He answered after 5 rings, his tone cold. "You should really learn to manage money better, bro. I can't keep bailing people out." "I've never asked you for anything before," I said quietly. "Exactly," he replied. "Let's keep it that way." Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief. My own brother, the one I once helped pay through college, had turned his back on me. Later that week, I went to visit my parents again. When I arrived, Adrian was there, laughing loudly about his new car. When he saw me, he smirked. "You know, maybe this is good for you. Losing everything builds character." Everyone laughed. Even my father smiled faintly. I laughed too, just to hide the pain, but inside, something shattered. That night, I walked home in the rain. My clothes were soaked, my shoes ruined, and my heart felt heavier than ever. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was a lesson, a cruel one. For the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to know how much lower their love could sink. After that night, something inside me changed. The pain I felt slowly turned into something sharper. Not anger, but clarity. I had seen enough. The people I once called family had revealed their true faces, and there was no going back. A few days later, I stopped by my parents' house one last time. I didn't plan to stay long, just wanted to check on them before disappearing completely. As I walked up the porch, I heard laughter inside. My name came up. "Honestly," my brother said, his voice dripping with amusement. "He was never that smart. It was luck that made him rich. Now he's finally where he belongs." My mother laughed softly. "It's sad, but maybe this will teach him humility." I froze. Every word felt like a knife to my chest. That was the moment I knew the test was over. I didn't need to hear more. I turned around and walked away quietly, my hands trembling, but my heart strangely calm. That night, I called Ethan. "It's time," I said. "Let's bring everything back under my name." He didn't ask questions. Within weeks, my companies were transferred back to me. I started new projects, bigger ones, but this time I stayed in the shadows. I wanted peace, not praise. While my family believed I was still broke, I rebuilt everything silently, efficiently. My name started to appear again in business magazines, but under initials and company titles they didn't recognize. For the first time in months, I slept without feeling empty. The test had revealed the truth, and the truth had set me free. But fate has a strange way of coming full circle, because the very people who broke me were about to come knocking on my door again. Months passed quietly. I worked in silence, growing stronger while my family drifted further away. My new company expanded faster than I ever imagined. This time, I didn't flash my wealth. No fancy cars, no designer suits, just results. Ethan and I built something unshakable. Investors came in, and soon, news channels started talking about a mysterious entrepreneur shaking up the market. They didn't know it was me. Then one evening, I received an invitation to a charity gala, the kind of event my family loved attending. The host was one of my new business partners, who insisted I come as a guest of honor. I hesitated at first, but a small voice inside me whispered, "Go! It's time." When I walked into the grand ballroom, I felt eyes on me. Cameras flashed, journalists whispered, "That's him, the man behind the new empire." Across the room, I saw my family. My mother froze mid-sentence. My father's smile vanished, and Adrian almost dropped his drink. I walked toward them slowly, every step echoing louder than the music. "Hello, everyone," I said calmly. "It's been a while." My mother stammered, You're here? We thought that I was broke." I finished her sentence with a soft smile. Adrian tried to laugh it off. "Wait, are you saying all those stories about the new millionaire, that's you?" I nodded. The same failure you laughed at. The silence that followed was almost satisfying. My parents looked embarrassed, shifting uncomfortably as the cameras turned toward us. "You lied to us," my father said quietly. "No," I replied. "I tested you. I needed to know if your love was real." Their faces fell. My mother reached out, her voice trembling. "We were just scared. We didn't mean to." But I gently stepped back. "You meant every word. Don't worry. I'm not here for revenge. I just wanted the truth." They stood speechless as I turned away. Around us, people whispered and stared, realizing what had just unfolded. For years, I believed money changed people. But that night, I learned something deeper. Money doesn't change people. It only reveals who they truly are. And as I walked out of that shining ballroom, I finally felt lighter, not because I was rich again, but because I was free. A few days after the gala, I received a message from my mother. "Please come home. We need to talk." For a moment, I almost ignored it. But something inside me wanted closure. Not revenge, just peace. So I agreed. When I arrived at my parents' house, everything looked the same, yet it felt completely different. The air was heavy with awkward silence. My father sat stiffly on the couch, my mother beside him, and Adrian stood near the window, pretending to check his phone. My mother was the first to speak. "We're sorry for how things happened," she said softly. "We didn't know you were testing us." I looked at her for a long moment. "That's the point, Mom. You weren't supposed to know. I wanted to see who would stay when everything was gone." Adrian finally turned around. "You made us look like fools in front of everyone," he snapped. "You could have just told us the truth." I smiled faintly. "Would it have changed anything? When I needed you, you laughed. When I asked for help, you turned away. You showed me exactly who you are." He fell silent. My father sighed. "We were wrong," he admitted quietly. "But you have to understand, it was a shock for us too." "Shock," I repeated. "You mocked me, ignored me, and left me alone, all because you thought I had nothing to offer." No one spoke after that. The only sound was the ticking clock on the wall. Finally, I stood up. "I didn't come here to fight," I said. "I just wanted to thank you for teaching me what love shouldn't look like." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Can we start over?" she whispered. I gave a gentle smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Maybe one day, but not today." And with that, I turned and walked out, not in anger, but in peace. For once, they weren't losing a son because of money. They were losing him because of truth. As I walked away from my parent house for the last time, the evening sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. The wind felt softer that day, almost as if the world itself was telling me, it's over. I didn't feel angry anymore. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. What once broke me had become my greatest strength. Back at my apartment, I sat by the window and looked out at the city lights, bright, alive, and endless. Somewhere out there, my family was realizing what they had lost. Not my money, not my success, but me. I took out my phone and sent one last message to my mother. "I still love you. I just can't go back to the person who believed your love was unconditional." Then I turned the phone off and set it aside. The next morning, I met Ethan for coffee. He smiled and said, "You did it. You found your answer." I nodded. "Yeah, and it cost me everything. But I gained myself." I decided to donate part of my earnings to a charity that helps struggling families. Families who might actually value love over wealth. As I walked out into the sunlight, a quiet peace settled in my heart. Money can buy comfort, but not loyalty. It can reveal truth, and sometimes that truth is worth every tear.